Hi
Hello, guys.
everyone. Welcome to Bimfili Talk. Yes, it's presented by Bimfili sponsors Göktekin and Unity. I, Ece Çalışkan, will be your host with Cenk Erkoçoğlu. Cenk, so
Hello,
before
guys.
introducing our guest, why don't you give some information about Bimfili and recent news?
Okay, that would be great. This is our I think fifth international broadcast, and we are very happy to welcome TestFit here. If you guys are interested in Bimfili, you can just view our new published website, bimfili.com. It's in Turkish now, but will be in English very soon. We organized some events, live broadcasts, workshops before the COVID, and now we go online, just like this one. We invite guests with different topics. We talk every Thursday, every Saturday. I hope you like it. Let's invite our guest, Ece. What do you say?
Of course. So you can just follow us on the social media platforms. Today, our topic is generative design and urban planning with TestFit. This is such a popular and interesting topic with a really good feature, actually. Our guest is CEO and co-founder of TestFit, Clifton Arnott. Hello, Clifton.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Actually, it is great to have you. Thank you for accepting our invitation.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm in Texas and we're talking, thousands and thousands of miles away on a Saturday. Yeah. So very, very excited to meet you all and present what we've built in Texas.
We are also quite excited. So can you tell us about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. I can certainly give you the highlights. Let's see. Move this so I can appear to be looking into the camera. So I am from architecture background. I grew up wanting to be an architect. And in school, I found that I was really passionate about apartment buildings and housing and the kinds of buildings that we weren't asked to design in college. In college, they're telling you design a library, design a museum, design these things. Yeah, like you're never really told, hey, time to design an apartment. And I had one semester where we did a master plan and designed an apartment. I fell in love with it. But apartments are a commodity building type. They require a lot of volume in order to get built. Especially in the United States. So, modulate all of my comments on the market to what is happening in the United States. So I decided to go work for a real estate developer to understand the volume problem, to understand why it's so difficult to get housing built, especially in our country. And when I was there, I was part of a design team that was drawing feasibility studies, trying to draw a lot of them in order to find projects that would work. And so there's several analyses that have to take place in order for commodity apartment buildings to be successful. And the design is one of those things. It's not all of the things that need to happen, but the design of the building is one of those things. We had a construction group that would do pricing information on how much it would cost to build it. We had a finance team that was figuring out the debt and the equity and the kind of money that was needed to build it. We had a civil engineering team that would figure out, what's the shape of the land and who owns it and what kind of encumbrances are on it, the sort of zoning piece. And the slowest piece in the process was the architecture. We were drawing things on trace paper, oftentimes with big sort of flare tip pins that really had no kind of accuracy to them other than, we kind of feel like we can get this size building, but we don't really fully know. Because an architect at this point in time is just trying to create a vision for the deal. But in reality, that vision is what the rest of those different analyses base their ability to be successful on top of. So if you want to run a financial analysis of whether or not a deal would be successful, you needed to have the building first to then be able to do that. So through this process of working in the real world, for a real life developer that was putting millions and millions of dollars into buildings, I just realized that somebody had to do something on the feasibility side for architecture. And at this time, this was about 2015, 2016. Dynamo really wasn't in a good spot. Grasshopper even was pretty bad for the kind of things that I wanted it to do for me. So where I landed was I called my buddy, who's now my CTO and co-founder, Ryan Grieg, and I said, Ryan, you're good at math. You're a programmer. Can you help me solve these very specific problems? Because I don't want to work 80 hours a week for the rest of my life. I want to be somebody that goes into work. Yeah. I wanted to be a designer, right? Like I wasn't really designing things. Like I was designing a spreadsheet and then placing it onto the floor plan, onto the site. And Ryan said, yeah, okay, explain the problem. And I said, okay, I'm trying to solve these sort of very specific range math problem of how many units can I get corridor if the units had these widths and the corridor is this long. He said, okay, I'll call you back. So he went away for like an hour and he compiled a little terminal application that you would like type in your numbers and it would spit out like the ideal solution. And I was just blown away that this engineer that barely knew the problem, he's a software engineer, so he barely understood the problem, that he could go in and be that lethal that quickly with software to build something that I really needed. And it kind of stopped there for a while. Like I was happy with this sort of terminal application that, I was going home at 8 p.m. instead of 10 p.m. Right. And I called him one day. I said, hey, the thing that would really help this is if I could like draw what I wanted on the screen and then it would just fill in all of the units. So here, I'll share my screen just as an example.
May I ask a question, Clifton? While you were working on that project, there were no such an example like the TestFit, isn't it? So you really had to come up idea with it's very great actually.
Right. So the goal, or at least what I wanted to do, was I wanted to come into an application like this, and I just wanted to draw. Like I want my building to look kind of like this, and it could be anything. It could be a weird shape. It could be a long shape, but I want to draw it, and then I want to click a button and have all of the details get filled in according to what the details should be. And so that's kind of what we built. And it was a rather quick, I can't say rather quick because it's been several years, but it became viable as a product rather quickly. And I decided to leave my job to try to sell this thing, to other people and to see if, we could actually make a startup out of it.
Actually, you two created a really great team. I mean, you were defining the problem and he was kind of writing a code about it.
Yeah. So
completed each other.
Yes. So for the first time in my life, I felt like I had somebody that I was truly collaborating project with, where he had a skill set that was completely different. Programming is cold, hard logic. It's, you have to get from point A to point B through logic. And I didn't really understand that. I was like, I just want to draw a thing that makes me happy and that I can, do my architecture on top of. So the technical achievement aside, like the technical achievement's frankly pretty amazing in my mind. especially when two guys from Texas that had never done a startup or had no idea what we were doing at the time could come together and build something that would be so excitable and so exciting to the industry that now I'm talking to people in Turkey on a Saturday, right? Like it's sort of mind blowing that you can grow from a little idea into something amazing.
It's really great actually, and I would like to show you one of the video that I downloaded from your website. I think if our audience open the broadcast new, they would like to have an idea about the TestFit.
Yeah, go for it. Okay. The infamous hype video.
Okay, that's really great video actually.
In a world where drawing site plans take too long on sites that will never turn into true real estate development opportunities, there exists a software that has come to the rescue. Solve deals instantly with TestFit. Geolocation and 3D context buildings. Easily swap building types. Generate more schemes than the mind can comprehend. Solve multiple sites. Dive headfirst into urban planning. Swap unit styles. Not a fan of generative design? Customize your building massing using manual tools. Tap into the power of customization with manual mode. Move generated stairs, units, and lifts into custom locations. Generative parking facilities. We will count the parking stalls for you. And before you ask, you can export all the data you want to SketchUp, Dynamo, AutoCAD, CSV, PDF, and GLTF. Is that every feature we have? No. We have shadows and so much more. Solve deals instantly with TestFit.
We have TestFit. I really like this video.
So there's a story behind that video, honestly, that I don't know. Like, we were a small business before we were venture funded. We used to be Building Forge, limited liability company, and our product was actually called Residential Engine. And it's very hard to communicate, this is Residential Engine by Building Forge. So we just say TestFit now. It's much easier. But one night when I was putting that video together, I had run out of steam, if you will, and I knew we needed voiceover, and I was just like, all right, what do people do with voiceover? And so it was like, in a world where, so it was, like we now have a marketing professional that, like, when you look at the video, you're like, this is business software. Maybe we can do something a little bit better. And I think they're right, but it shows the heart behind our company, which is like, we're pretty irritated at the status quo. And we have a solution that some people can really benefit from right now today. Exactly. And people that watch that video and they say to themselves, this is a really unprofessional company I don't want to have anything to do with. We don't want to work with them. Like, we would rather work with people that were solving a really hardcore problem for them today.
No, it's actually a very good video. I really like it, and you have an entertainment in yourself, so it's really creative video. Actually, I really like it. And one of the words that it's not your grandpa's side tool. So it's very catchy.
Well, if you think about it, like, our grandfathers, at least in architecture, right? The guys that are in their 80s, they roll out a piece of trace paper and they draw with trace paper. And it's not data driven until they calculate how big the things were. So I don't know. Like, I think it's provocative, but the point of the software is that like we need to do something different as an industry. We can't keep doing the same things the way that we've been doing it. And like you see this frustration with some of the people going from CAD to BIM right now. It's like we're still doing that, and we're 20 years into BIM. So I don't know. Maybe BIM hasn't won. Maybe it's time for the next iteration of what software should be.
What you are doing is very creative. I was also checking your website before the broadcast. I saw DIM, Deal Information Modeling, as kind of referencing to BIM. Like, what is it?
Yeah. So back to like, there's a difference between projects where BIM is really useful and deals. Deals is like before a project is even born. And deals is when you have to do those analyses. You got to do construction, finance, building design, land, and you have to do regulations. So when you have all 5 of those pieces of information either solved or have access to them, I call that a deal information model. Like it is ready to go into a project at that point in time. Where
even before the project.
Yeah. So Autodesk has BIM, TestFit has DIM.
That's great.
Sure.
That's great. We how do we gonna continue the broadcast? Do you want to share your screen so we will see TestFit on work?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm expecting a demo.
I can
because
dive into
we have some questions from our audience. Maybe some of them will be answered through the.
Yeah, sure. So can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So innovating feasibility. So I already went through kind of who I am, architecture background, real estate development background. Follow me on Twitter if you're on Twitter. I'm also on LinkedIn. Love to reach out to people on LinkedIn. Let's see, co-founder TestFit 2017. So we've been around for, I guess we're into our 4th year now. So we help developers, architects, urban planners, and more solve site plans. And then the way that we're marketing it, they're branding it, is that it's a configurator. So nowhere on here do you see generative design. TestFit is a configurator. They're slightly different, and I can get into that, kind of when I do my demo. But focus right now on high density multifamily. We're really lethal at that. Low density multifamily has been more recent. Hotels also more recent. We shipped an office product that the future of office is kind of unknown in the US, so we haven't really pat our foot on the gas on that. And then parking facilities, which, I mean, honestly, like part of the reason why I hated working as an architect was the fact I had to count and draw parking stalls. Like, who wants to spend years doing that? Nobody. So why? So we have this little graph where on this left side, we've got value created for clients. And this could be an architect's perspective. It could be a professional services engineer's perspective. But in the concept planning part of the process, you're actually capturing and creating a lot of value for the clients right from the get-go. So that is to say, like, most of the money is made in construction documents and this means issue for construction. This doesn't mean IFC is the file type. But over time, like, you're getting paid more, but most of the initial value is created in concept and SDs. And we have this problem called data drop that happens anytime you're going from like trace paper into BIM or SketchUp into BIM, or really any kind of technical process where you're changing the format of the medium that you're using to communicate the building to. And it's mostly happening in concept SDs. Whenever it's going from SketchUp to Revit or trace paper to Revit, really anything going into Revit is when this data drop happens. And so we call it design for documentation. Let's design a building with the parts already documented, and we can accelerate a deal right into a project and keep data fidelity through the process. And Scrum, which this is a great book on. You can't see it because the software is trying to hide it, but it's about doing twice the amount of work in half the amount of time. architecture could really benefit from eliminating waste. And most of the time you have created a whole lot more effort at the top of the bar, and then you've got this data drop, so you have all this other effort. So there's a lot of wasted effort when moving through deal stages. And the subject of today's presentation or webinar is through concept and SDs. So we believe that you should use software for what it's good at. TestFit's really great at whole building design iterations. Dynamo's great at automation, and Revit is really great at documentation. We should probably add authorship too. Sorry, I'll hop into a TestFit demo. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, we see our screen.
Okay, so I'm going to go unit scale to building scale to city scale. So I'm going to try to be logical with how I do it. I kind of ramble, so get me back. If I start going on a trail, just let me know to move on. All right, so we have a function in here called unit database. I'm going to open up the editor, and this is really where TestFit starts. If you have here, I'm going to use actually attachments. So what we learned talking with architects across the United States is they have a lot of unit plans already designed and fully documented in BIM. So we felt that we shouldn't build an algorithm that would create unit plans. We would rather build something that could actually grab this embedded intelligence and use it in the site planning part of our process. And so what users can do is they can pull in, we call it a attachment. They can pull in all of these units. They can start to define, how big the entry niche is, which changes city to city, state to state. They can define the metadata associated with this unit. So for example, this one is called an S1. It's a studio. It's 20 feet wide, 27 feet deep. We do have metric in here, but because all my Revit stuff is in Imperial, I'm going to have to do everything in Imperial. So
no problem.
I'll try to convert to metric on the fly if you want me to.
That's good. May I ask you a question? These are the drawings. Are these CAD drawings or just PDF drawings? How do people gonna start with preparing these units?
So these are JPEGs. So it doesn't really need to be anything. Like it can literally be anything. But what it does need to be is it needs to be related back to something that's actually built out in BIM, right? So this is unit 003, right? Like it's a BIM file. So the ideal scenario is that these units would be built out in BIM, and then that way, when you go into SDs, moving into Revit, you can just copy all that information.
Sorry to interrupt. I will also ask you something. Can we also define the facades require window or something like that?
We don't have windows yet, but as we're starting to model more and more things, more and more architects and development guys want to see like a realistic building. TestFit started out as a area diagram, and now it's starting to look more like buildings. So give us enough time. We'll be able to model, everything. So studio, this is a tiny inline unit, and then there's units that are on corners, and how does the corner and the balcony and everything operate together, and then there's outside corners, and so it's taking this really, in my mind, intelligent approach to breaking apart the building into Legos that are meaningful and useful. And then reassembling the building back together in the main app. So we start with units. You can do, balconies when they're inset. You could do a hotel, a stack of hotels. You could do a bay type building where you've got bays. And these are really solid American typologies. Not sure so much like what the facades would want to look like, if I was doing an apartment building in Istanbul. Very different, a city that's 3,000 years old versus Dallas, Texas, which is like 150 years old. So the way that we do buildings is very different. Is one thing that I've learned. So we've got the units. I'm gonna go with the attachments, and then now we're at sort of the building scale. So in TestFit, what we need to do is we need to go to city. We have maps integration. I think you could probably go to
Istanbul.
symbol. Well, I was going to type in Ankara, but I'm not quite sure how to spell it.
No, Istanbul would be enough.
So I don't know. Maybe I got to be careful because I don't want to demolish some, like the Hagia Sophia. Right? Maybe I'll go with this this hotel or something, right?
Yeah.
So maybe this site right here is our site that we're gonna do a new building on. That's a palace. Okay. So apologies if this is like if this is a very important building, I'm sorry. I don't mean to do it. But all you have to do is define a boundary, and when I close the boundary, TestFit will generate a building.
Wow.
So this is the difference between a configurator and generative design. In generative design, you would have defined a boundary, and then you would sit there and wait for 15 minutes as the thing generates millions and millions of really bad options that you could try to find a slight difference between the million options, or use the intelligence of a designer like me to look at this site and say, all right, here are the things that I really don't like about this site plan. And the things that I don't like as a Texan, my parking garage is right on this road over here. So when people are driving by this road, all they're going to see is a giant parking garage. So what I want to do is, using the manual tools, I'm going to define a different location for my parking garage. I'm going to place it here. And then I'm going to force it to line the garage. I'm going to try to place it again. And if it doesn't auto wrap, then I will do it in manual mode. So go into manual mode, and I'm just going to wrap this guy on this edge, and on this edge. I'm going to clean it up a little bit, make sure everything is good. And I'm going to hit the manual mode again. And that edge of the garage is now lined with units. So, it's about using a designer for what they're really good at, which is understanding a complex problem very simply, and using a math algorithm for what it's really good at, which is literally just math. Algorithms are only good at math. They're not good at understanding the qualitative aspects of a building. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to look at these courtyards. They're pretty small. I don't think I would be able to have like a more active space in these courtyards if they're these small. So what I'm going to do is, in the manual mode, I'm just going to remove this edge and this edge, and then we'll just close it off kind of like this. Pull that in a little bit, and then I'll turn on ortho snaps to make sure that everything is sort of lined up.
Clifton, by the way, how about the regulations about the fire, so the program software deals also with those regulations?
So for the US, we're under IBC, which is the International Building Code that's used, I think, maybe just by the United States. So maybe it should be called the United States Building Code, but typical American style to name it the International Building Codes. Joke. And in IBC, it has a travel distance rule, and it has a building area rule. It has a horizontal exit and vertical exit rule. So what TestFit does is it looks for a starting location to place a stair, and then another stair. And so now I have two vertical exits in this one building. And then moving off of here, I have a firewall here. And then this is another building that's got another staircase. I'll scroll up to the next floor. So we have this typology in the US that has corridors everywhere. And the reason why we have all the corridors everywhere is that IBC requires 2 exits from each building as opposed to 1 exit.
Actually, We have one question comes from our audience, the similar one. Let us answer that question because it's related with this. Is it working based on US regulation that you answered? Are you considering adding other countries' regulations as well?
Yeah, we are. So the first set of new typologies that we're working on are geared towards more European style cities where there's a central core and about 6 units off of it is sort of the maximum. But our target, like 98% of our paying customers are in the United States. So that I'm not going to say it's on the back burner, but it's something that we will do eventually because we do have so many leads coming in from across the world wanting us to build these things. So essentially, like they say to us, we really like what you built for the US. Could you build it for elsewhere? The answer is yes, but not like right now today while we're still trying to figure out the US market, if that makes sense. Yeah. But that's not to say you can't use it currently in a way that would be useful. Like you can remove units. You can start to define different shapes for the parking garage. So like we did a trial with a firm in Turkey earlier this year. And what we learned was they really liked the ability to cram as many parking stalls into a shape as possible. So like this is our parking algorithm, right? Like it's just it's really trying to slam as many of them in there as possible.
If you are working in Istanbul, you need to.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And what we also learned was that they wanted the garage below grade. So here I am just moving it below grade. And then you can start to sort of shape, maybe what would it look like in 3D. So it might not be a perfect fit, right, for all of the regulations, but you can turn that part of the software off and use it just as a really powerful modeling tool.
Now this looks like a building belongs to Istanbul. I really like the touch of designer, actually.
So you could actually put this guy. Let's see. I'll try to move him to the middle. I'll change its type to a void. I always love doing this because it's maybe impractical, but there you go. There's a giant sort of hole in the middle.
We have another questions with the modeling. I think it's interesting. May I show you?
Yeah, sure.
Do you offer solutions for sites with slope rather than?
That's a great question. So we recently released this tool that enables you to do a slope from the top.
Wow.
So you can model sort of this way, which I think is pretty powerful. It's got a whole sort of, you can be very, very specific, on the angles and the elevations, which is great. But maybe this question is asking about topography. And in that case, we don't have tools right now for topography analysis, like cut and fill or moving dirt around. But we will be using some of this same code that we built for envelopes for the below grade for the solving the land.
It's very easy. You handle with the model. It's very good. You just
were designing while answering the question.
That's great.
It's hard not to like it.
But some of our investments will be because they would like to understand the site analysis. So they will just put a model. They would like turn it. I think you have some reports from that model actually.
Yeah, we do. So pretty understated, and something that I used to mention on every single demo was that all of the information is tabulated automatically. So, for example, if you wanted to know how much square footage of facade, was on this building, there's 186,000 feet. So there's about 19,000 square meters of facade area on this building. This is something that would have taken like several hours, honestly, to go back and sort of figure out how big things were. And also, like, whenever you're tabulating a building in the US, you've got these very specific rules you need to follow on how to tabulate the building. We follow those same rules the same exact way using the same algorithm every single time. So when you look at a TestFit scheme, so here I'll save this as a scheme, and then we'll make some more. I'm just going to make a ton of pointless, slightly different. You could say I'm doing generative design right now because I just generated a ton of different things. So if you wanted to compare all of these against one another, you could. So this is scheme J, and it's got a 398 units. Scheme I, 379. And so TestFit will have a few of these options for you to create a new scheme from. But it's not generating, it's not going into some evolutionary solver to find the best one. Like, you as the architect is the evolutionary solver. Does that make sense? Your brain is really, really important to this process.
This is what clients are asking to us. Actually, most of the time we do like 3 options, and they're asking like how many units are there, how much profit can I have?
Right, exactly. So let's say you actually did go through this process and you liked, some of these options. You could filter them down in the same way that like a parallel coordinate graph would. So you could say I want at least 400 units, and then that frees up. You only have a few that are in that category. So we do have a searching feature, but it does require users to add schemes of their own design to the pool set of schemes, and you can generate from changes. So, if I just wanted to have a ton of different schemes that are all just slightly different based off of the density, you could do that, and then now you got all these schemes to compare and contrast against.
That's great. We have another question. Let me show you. Aslan asked this question. I'm an ArchiCAD user. Can I export TestFit model to other BIM softwares except Revit, or at least have an IFC model?
It's a good question. So there's a couple of answers. So what I can do is I can save this as DXF, which is probably it's just a open CAD exchange format. And then there's also SketchUp, and then there's GLTF. So GLTF is an open source sort of 3D JPEG that I feel like the industry is kind of moving towards, is more of a web-based 3D model. But as far as like getting an actual IFC out of TestFit, we don't actually generate building geometry. We generate areas that refer to buildings. So what we've suggested to people that are tech savvy is, so I'll say this as a sample, and then I close like 30 things real quick. I can open this with Notepad, and this is a TestFit save file. It's got the latitude and longitude. It's got all of the information about what's in that file, all the different schemes and all the geometry in it. And we have a web page that describes how to parse this information. And that would be, in my mind, the best way to get into ArchiCAD today, right? Is like, how do you parse the information in a way that could be accepted in ArchiCAD in a good setup. At the same time, if we go ahead.
From Autodesk, I was saying, are you working with people from Autodesk to export it to Revit? Do you have any collaboration with them?
So we don't really with Autodesk other than they give us free they give us a free copy of Revit, a free copy of Dynamo's open source. Like they give us free software to then build on top of. And then if we run into a particular problem, they're incredibly open and willing and able to help us get to that next level. I couldn't be happier with Autodesk's support of us, especially given that we're like they don't own us, right? We're two different companies. So
when you export it, you have like walls, floors, and so on. How's it working?
Yeah, so maybe let me do my last piece on the demo, and then we can run it. We can run this building. We can run this building into Revit. So we're maybe getting ahead of ourselves. But the last piece I want to talk about is really city scale. So if you have like a master plan that you're working on, we have a whole road editing suite in here. So for example, if you have a street and you want to add a maybe parking to it, we have this tool that you can create road sections. So this could be 45-degree head-in parking on this side, and then I'll add another piece that'll be 45-degree, head-in parking on the other side. And it's totally worth it because I'll draw these here in a second. So actually, I'll go 45 on this side. So I'm following the flow of traffic. Drive on the right, park in. Cool. Save it, go back to the building, and then what I can do is I can draw that same road, and then draw an intersection. So the things that we hated about drawing roads is angling parking stalls, having different lanes, having to do all the offsets, it just was sort of a pain, I think, in the architecture world, because you're not a civil engineer, right? You're just drawing roads that need to represent roads.
And it takes too much time for repetitive items, so we don't need to do it.
Yeah.
Yep. So we just wanted a pretty good sort of intersection generator, and we built that. So the way that we work with the I guess the main modeling tool is that maybe you could draw like a big loop or something. And again, in the US, we have massive swaths of land that have nothing built on them. And so I'm just going to kind of define a few sites here, and then generate
with different persons.
And then you can go into each one. You can say, want actually that. This one needs to be maybe a tower. This one needs to be like a hotel. This one needs to be just for surface parking because maybe there's like a big park or something over here. And then all of this stuff is in a dynamic model. So you can actually move like entire roads while you're modeling with the sites. So this is sort of the highest level that we get to is sort of like big block planning with the roads and with street sections. Yeah. So any questions on this part of the product?
Actually, those are very great. We have some questions from our audience, but actually it's not related with this one. But let me show you if I'm saying correctly the name. Assis Dandekar. What advice do you have to someone who wants to get their team out of the SketchUp and into this workflow?
Man. Changing behavior is the essence of innovation. So you either overwhelm people with the features that, like you could, draw a parking garage in 10 seconds and you wouldn't have to draw the parking stalls yourself, or we could solve the unit mix. Like you've got to find a good business case for trying to get people to change their behavior. And for us, like, the way that the economics work in the US is that a lot of architects do this work for free in the hopes that they get the schematic design, design development, construction document package from the owner. So they're losing money every time they draw a site plan that doesn't pan out into a real project. So that way it's quite a bit easier, I think, to convince firm leadership that, let's drive some change from the top. Other times you'll run into individual people like yourself. I think it's Ashish. Like if you really want people on your team to change their behavior, like you have to lead them. You have to show them, here is how you can do it. And it's not an easy task. I think maybe 5 to 10% of people in our industry are really keyed into wanting to innovate and wanting people to change their behavior. And the other 90% are just happy drawing, buildings the same way that they've been drawing them for 25 years. So it's not very easy. And I would say, don't be discouraged. Fight the good fight. And then if you can't convince people to change, the best startup that can happen in an AEC is that someone like you goes and starts your own professional services firm, adopts all the technology that people weren't going to use, and then go out and be lethal. So that's sort of the fear, is when firms don't want to change, the best people will leave and they'll innovate on their own. Yeah. So do y'all want me to run into like a real quick Revit workflow?
Of course.
Yeah. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. We don't have time to do the full one. So I'm going to select maybe just a simple kind of site. Maybe we'll add one little setback to it. Maybe scrolling. All right. I want this edge. And all right, we'll clip it off right there. Cool. All right, so we got this site. I'm going to file, save, export, and then I will go to Revit. We have a bunch of Dynamo Player stuff already built on our website that you can download, so I'm not going to actually walk through the scripts. If you know anything about me, it's that I hate scripts. I hate seeing them. They're like really, really complicated. I could actually do it in this file. Revit to TestFit building to Revit. I'm gonna run it. It's gonna, it takes a second for Dynamo to load up, and then I'll get the file path. I'm not sure which one I saved. 139. I didn't save it on the desktop. This is another thing. You got to make sure everything is saved correctly in the right spot. Give me 1 second. Actually, I'm just going to reset it. I'm a little bit worried. So normally Nat runs this. Nat's our head of BIM. He's brilliant. And I hired him to run these, but it's Saturday, so he gets a weekend. So I'll do export to Revit, and that's the one I'm going to do. TestFit building to Revit. All right, so you can pick a roof family type, a floor family type, amenity wall family, like all of the different wall family types. None of these that I have picked are probably that good. Not the point, I don't think, of the demonstration. But maybe I'll change the balcony to something with glass. That might be the only change I'm going to make. But then again, I'm not, here's, but glass, sure. But glazed. Import. And it's going to take, 30 seconds to build the file in Revit. And I could even show the task manager, because maybe some people would want to see that things are being utilized. It's going quickly, hopefully. But this is always the slowest part of the process, is building the BIM model.
I understood. But if people would like to use TestFit, how they can download or buy from your website? Are there any trial version they can use?
Or yeah, also
Yeah.
are you helping to the
Yep.
companies like for them to use it?
Yeah, so we offer a 30-day free trial if you plug in a credit card. So okay, here's the model.
Okay. Wow.
So this is where's TestFit. This is the TestFit model, and then there's the Revit model. And it's got, looks like it has the butt glazed on the balconies, and then all the other walls are, basic wall. So you can go in and set the right families and everything, and you'll get the BIM model. And then we don't have time for it, but another workflow that we have references a TestFit file and then can actually start to plug in all of these units, all the model groups that are inside these units directly into the floor plan over here. So reach out to Nat if you'd like to see that whole workflow. Reach out to Nat at testfit.io, and he can get on a Zoom call and share it with you.
Okay.
So there was a question about students. We do offer free licenses to students. You need to send an email to support at testfit.io saying that you're a student and you'd like a license. The reason why we have a credit card is because we want people that are serious to come in and try it. Like we don't have time really with our 11 people to go into training with people that aren't really that serious about it. And then the last sort of piece of information that I find useful is just send us an email. Like if you're interested and you're not quite sure where to start, send an email to support@testfit.io. Like there's people on the other side of that are willing to answer questions.
Yes. You answer it quickly. Actually, we would like to first to broadcast with you. I think Alexin or you just replied as soon as possible. So here we are. And we have one more question from Onur. It's about structural engineering, actually. He has a comment, of course. I cannot imagine how will be the future of TestFit on structural optimization. Can we integrate it more structural parameters and make it physical more real? Maybe in future.
That's a good question. We've taken a step in that direction. It's not all the way there yet, but it is an example of where I think the future of coordination is going to happen. So TestFit's not really a tool for a structural engineer. It's really a tool for like a planner or a real estate developer, like someone that just is trying to get a concept done so they can build a project.
For concept design stage, actually.
Yeah, concept design. Yeah. And some of our customer feedback was actually in our parking garage. They said, it's really not great because like it just draws a big garage and there's no structural supports. There's nothing in here that, keeps this thing standing up. And it's saying that I'm getting 1,200 stalls when in reality I'm probably getting fewer. So we reached out to Thornton Tomasetti, who's one of the best structural engineers in the United States, and we asked him, hey, if we gave you some space in our garage to put a column, could we build a button inside TestFit that could go ask you how big those columns should be? And so this feature was developed in collaboration with Thornton Tomasetti and still in beta. Yes, proceed. And so what it did is it sent an whole analytical model to them, and they send back, here's how big these structural columns need to be. So my advice to structural engineers is go build an API, like go build something that you can sell to software people like me, because we're really interested in, plugging in pieces of what you're able to do into this configurator. And that's, I mean, look, it's not optimizing for the best structural. It's simply presenting an opportunity. Here are columns that you will need to have in this garage. It's not saying that go build it right now. It's just saying you no longer have to worry about this assumption.
As I just said, this is the concept stage actually, and it looks great for us. So we will have an idea how we're gonna use the space for parking areas. Or it also gives some structural ideas about.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So here I've finished up our my questions slide. So questions and feedback. Our head of BIM, if you'd like to talk about Revit, TestFit to Revit, is Nat, testfit.io, and then you can send us a support email.
Can I add one more thing? Can TestFit take into account of neighbor buildings and climate data? In your website, I saw something about the shadow analysis or something like that.
Yes. So we have a button that you can. Yeah, I can just file reset and go to.
And also, are you planning to add more features for the sustainability part?
That's a good question.
We're always planning on adding more features. You're not going to get away from it in software. All right, so we'll do, I don't know, something that doesn't make sense. And then you can click a button and we've got context information. Now the context information is driven by Mapbox. And so if Mapbox has coverage, we have coverage. I'm not so sure about Istanbul, how well it's modeled. But this is how we just have an API that we go grab the buildings from. And then you can run a shadow analysis in here, January 1st, here's what it looks like.
It's using the location information, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, the shadows point in the wrong direction. I'm just kidding. It's in the Southern Hemisphere, your shadows point south. In the Northern Hemisphere, your shadows point north. So it's tested. It's verified. You can run it with multiple shadow iterations, which I kind of like because you can see, for a specific day, like, how bad the shadows really get. So maybe I'm just looking at this right here. Like this side over here is going to have some pretty bad shadows if that was your side.
Thank you, Cotton.
Thank you.
I am checking the question, but I think we have all the questions, and you answered all of them. Ece, do you have anything in your mind you would like to ask?
I just want to ask: are your clients mostly from architectural firms?
The vast majority of TestFit users are architects. The more than half of our revenue is from architecture firms, but we do work with real estate developers, general contractors, and real estate investors, brokers. I mean, anybody that really is involved in the building design process and wants to do feasibility, that's kind of our market. But I will say that architects can use this thing, so well. Like it folds in so perfectly with an existing architect and their abilities.
It has a really huge potential. Thank you for the presentation and the demo. It was great, actually.
Yeah, AJ, thanks for having me. And Cenk, if you guys want to have me back, hopefully if we get something that we can address Europe with, I'd love to come back and give you guys.
Yeah, we would love to. We would love to see you again on the screen. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. If you have any questions, please comment those questions or email directly to Clifton. He can answer them very quickly. Thank you joining for this broadcast. Clifton, if you just wait a minute more, we will end the broadcast, but we would like to talk with you just 1 minute more. Okay, thanks. Bye-bye, guys. See you in another Bimfili YouTube.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.